This is a Tracking the Tropics update with the certified most accurate weather team at First Coast News.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm First Coast News Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner. It's 8:30 at night, and we are talking tropics. We're getting a lot more and a lot fresher information in. I think we got a lot going on. You think about how quiet, relatively speaking, it had been through the peak of hurricane season, which technically is September 10th. And some of the quietest times in the tropical Atlantic, Caribbean Gulf that, we'd seen since the early 90s. And now we are picking up in a very unique way with two systems so very close to each other between Tropical Storm Humberto that's out there and forecast to become a hurricane tomorrow. And then what we call an Invest 94 to be specific. That's near Hispaniola and will linger around the Bahamas for the next day or two. And they call them Invest. They're an area of investigation. And that's what the Hurricane Center kind of titles these things. They aren't quite tropical depressions yet, though right now the forecast is for it to become one. But let's talk about what we know right now. So we're going to give you your big headlines with the tropics. And the timeline I want you to watch would be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Think of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday if you were looking at one of those bell curves. And Sunday kind of be the climbing of the curve. It's certainly not the worst of the impacts that we'd experience here, but climbing towards Monday. Monday would be when any potential system, should it develop, which looks likely right now, would be essentially latitudinally abeam of Jacksonville, meaning right around 31 north latitude, and the longitude is what's going to make a difference, how far west or east this storm is. But by Tuesday, we should have some resolution and a wind shift. But we're talking about rough seas and surf, rip current conditions out at our beaches. Think about what Aaron brought. And while we had beautiful weather around the First Coast, especially, anywhere west of the Intracoastal Waterway, beautiful. Even at the beaches, it was nice, but you just had big, dangerous surf. So we'll watch that. And we're going to be streaming frequently. Of course, we're doing it right now. We're going to be with you in the morning yet again, and our typical show right there at 4:30, and again tomorrow at 8. So a lot to check in with, and we're going to have the very latest information for you there. So that's your kind of big headlines as far as the tropics. So let's dive right into it. Let's look at Tropical Storm Humberto. Still 60-mile-an-hour winds. Need to see it get up to 74 for it to be classified as that hurricane, which is forecast to happen by tomorrow, Friday. So we see Friday getting to hurricane strength, and we also note the curve away from the United States with this system. And that's been consistent, and confidence has grown there. But this is going to intensify, and the intensity forecast is what's been changing over the last 24 hours. So this now forecast to become a major hurricane as we get to Saturday, Sunday, a big, powerful storm that's going to split the difference between the Outer Banks and Bermuda. So going to stay away from the east coast of the United States. Certainly the coast of North Carolina needs to be thinking about big waves and surf as well. But this won't be the big weather maker for us along the First Coast. What would be, if you look down towards the DR there, Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, that's the second storm. And that's the second system that I've mentioned is called the Invest. As you can see, tropical wave Invest 94L, the classification it being in the northern hemisphere and the Atlantic side of things, close to the Turks and Caicos, Hispaniola, meaning Haiti, Dominican Republic. And the area of low pressure currently forecast to develop somewhere between Haiti and the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas over the next day or so. And we could eventually get that depression. We could also maybe get something called a PTC, which is a potential tropical cyclone. And the Hurricane Center would put that out when something is yet to develop pretty close to land. They do that. So watches and warnings could be issued with ample time, because you need to have a watch issued some 48 hours ahead of direct impacts, and you need to have a warning some 36 hours. And with the concurrent modeling, with a Monday landfall, current forecast would be for somewhere in the Carolinas. That would be, late Monday. So, 36 hours ahead of that would be sometime early Sunday. So that's when you have to start getting warnings out. And then, of course, a watch would need to be issued by Saturday, and we're already here at Friday. So in summary, things are going to start happening really fast. Okay, so we anticipate a lot of changes on Friday, anticipate a lot of updates, and we're going to bring those to you early and often. So right now, watching the red area, that has an 80% chance of development over the next 2 days, and that's really what we're going to focus on. 90% over the next 7 days, but really we're going to focus on the next 48 hours. Now look at our spaghetti. Spaghetti for dinner. Maybe you've already had dinner. And if you like to wrap your mind around the spaghetti model plots as opposed to that full-fledged modeling, which I'm going to show you as well, this shows a decent consensus of some sort of interaction with land with a system between the Savannah River, the Georgia-South Carolina border, and the North and South Carolina border, with a good deal of consensus towards Charleston and Myrtle Beach. So we got to watch those areas for direct impacts. Now for us, you notice even some of the more west computer models would take this storm, I think, at the closest track, maybe some 70, 80 miles off our coast, and that could lead to some rainfall and breezier conditions. Many other models keep it some 200 miles off our coast, but there is so much yet to be determined here because the low has to form first. Have to have that happen. Then we got to see what kind of interaction Humberto has. As you can see, Humberto on the right, that cluster of orange and red and purples, and then you see what could become Imelda. That would be the next named storm, Imelda. If it were to be named, it looks like that would happen Saturday or Sunday. Perhaps we get a depression for as early as Friday, certainly. Nothing's off the table. But this would show a system near the Bahamas on Sunday afternoon. We could start ramping up our impacts with some breezier conditions and bigger waves then. Then by Monday afternoon, notice how the storm is just about the same latitude as Jacksonville. And that's when the winds begin to ramp up, and we're looking at the 20 to 25, maybe even 30 mile an hour gusts in this scenario. And then onward and upward, this would move towards the Grand Strand of South Carolina, impacting the Carolinas all the way inland towards Charlotte. So we got much more I want to talk about with you here with the Tropics, more modeling to show you as we continue talking Tropics. We'll be right back after this short break. And we're back. And here's, so we had spaghetti, and now we're going to look at some other models. So the European and the GFS, the American model, they're the things that, you know, we look at and we kind of lean on pretty heavily. There's plenty of others out there that we all obviously use, but we like to see consistency. So as we continue to talk about the tropics this evening, let's look at the European model, and we're looking at timing. We're fast forwarding to Sunday afternoon, and this kind of lines up with what we saw in that winds map. So a system closing up, that circle you see right there over the Bahamas, just east of Miami, And by this point, most likely a tropical depression or storm. Let's put it into motion. So this, of course, lines up with that 3 o'clock Monday afternoon. We are seeing some of our breeziest conditions, perhaps some showers coming on shore out of the northeast. So strong east-northeast winds by Monday afternoon for the first coast. But this still would be 150 to 200 nautical miles off the coast of Jacksonville, with Humberto back behind it to the right. That's the other storm you're seeing there. So this would potentially be the time. So Monday through the day will kind of be heightened awareness for stronger winds, bigger seas, more dangerous rip currents. And then you see a tropical storm and or maybe a Category 1 hurricane with this current forecast modeling by late night, Monday night into the wee hours of Tuesday morning. This is 3 a.m. moving into the Grand Strand of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, bringing some conditions towards Charlotte, Columbia, and then kind of moving back around towards Atlanta, even bringing in some rain. Look at the GFS. So here's our American model. We're getting the very latest data here. Sunday evening, all right, we've got a system emerging from the Bahamas, and this is what we're saying Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are the time frame that we need to really be watching. This I see a little less rainfall, maybe being on the drier side of this storm, so we may go through Monday with limited rain, and that's something that has to be adjusted and we have to continue to watch. So some of those things that we are yet to learn and yet to be determined with this. Going through Monday morning, right around that lunchtime, we have the storm essentially even with Jacksonville, all right, so worst of our conditions. And then by Tuesday, somewhere between Charleston and Myrtle Beach, this could move onshore. So these models have been kind of consistent today, but very different than what we saw yesterday. And by tomorrow, if this thing does get developed, get its act together, we could have even more different information. Why it's going to be so important to continue to check in with the uncertainty still with interaction with land. It's got to interact with a lot of land between the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas. And it's got to deal with kind of some of those side-swiping impacts from Humberto. Model comparison. So I've got GFS and Euro on here. You look for concentric circles. What looks like a bullseye, the GFS in blue, the European model in yellow. So off to the right, you've got Humberto, Euro showing this thing, that storm strengthening pretty quickly and showing the same sort of pattern. But notice how consistent these have been. Now, European with Humberto a little bit slower, but otherwise pretty similar conditions. So getting some confidence with these models currently picking up on the same thing. So why with this system, the one that is yet to form, so the Invest, why would it take that more left turn, that more west turn into the Carolinas, and potentially kind of slide a little further west as we watch closer to the coast of Florida, as opposed to Gabrielle, which made that turn hard north, and what we're going to see with Humberto making that turn hard. Well, it's all got to do with steering currents, and we've got to watch what happens with our what we call the Bermuda High, the big ridge of high pressure over the Atlantic. And you note clockwise flow around this high pressure. Note how it grows and it gets bigger, and almost as if that high that's coming over the northeast of the United States almost connects with it. So what happens is you don't get that gate for this system to easily move through. And since the one moving through the Bahamas is going to pick up speed, it's going to essentially get blocked off from making that turn fully to the north and between the Outer Banks and Bermuda. So that's why it has that turn. That Bermuda High essentially blocking it. And this is why we've got to watch very carefully with this and any more western kind of track. How strong is this high pressure? And that's we're gonna fine tune that as we go through our Friday as well. Now the gate opens. Look how the high kind of weakens and retrogrades back to the east a bit, and that allows Humberto to make the turn, but too little too late for what could become Imelda. By that point, it's already turned into the United States and becomes a low and remnant low and bring some rain to the southeastern United States. So that's your European. GFS shows a very, very similar thing. That's why we're getting consistency there. High stays strong. You get the gate for Humberto, not so much for the other storm, which for our intents and purposes we're calling the Invest, but would be the ice storm should it become named. So there is the Invest again, and I want to kind of break down this is my drawing. This is not the Hurricane Center doing the forecasting. This is not an official track at all. This is my kind of interpretation of sort of best case, worst case scenarios with current information. So in a worst case, we get a more western path. Still looks like more for the Carolinas, though we have seen modeling suggest some outlying ensemble models that would show something towards closer to Savannah. Cannot rule that out, and I'd say anybody from Jacksonville, Florida to Wilmington, North Carolina need to be watching this very carefully through the next 48 hours. As this suggests, does it slide a little more west? But right now, modeling would the furthest west would suggest it stays 75 to 80 miles offshore. That would mean greater coastal impacts, potentially a little more rain, breezier as well. The kind of eastern path that Euro and GFS are potentially showing, which would keep the storm some 180 to 200 miles offshore, with more minimal coastal impacts, minimal rain chances, actually getting maybe some dry air pulled in as this system moves by, especially when we start getting those northwest winds by late Monday into early Tuesday. So we could see this pan out as well, certainly very possible. And it's certainly what we would hope for and wish cast for with those more minimal coastal impacts and lower rain chances and more confidence that it stays away from Florida. Current satellite picture, though, showing this system over Hispaniola, and then you see Humberto off to the right, a little bit further east, and you kind of zoom on in, and I just show you how far apart these are, 827 miles. And for something like the Fujiwara effect to happen, you need systems to be within 1,000 miles, but you need perfect atmospheric conditions for these two to really pinwheel like we were seeing yesterday. And strong high pressure to the north perhaps could prevent that from happening. It could overrule the stronger area of low pressure with Humberto right now kind of pulling away and creating, kind of almost absorbing this system as high pressure holds on. It was what we were seeing all day yesterday, if you were watching the modeling, and we're seeing less of that now. Stay with us. We're going to take one more quick break. I'm going to come back local, take a look at some local conditions, your 7-day forecast, Friday Night Football as well, all that to talk about right after this. Hey, welcome back. All right, so we've talked a lot of tropics. Let's come home now, and let's Let's kind of look at the next, the evening for sure, because we'll be on live broadcast at 11 o'clock if you stay up late with us, if you got to go to bed first. We are watching a few showers try to sneak into the west side of Duval. We've got the lingering innings of jumbo shrimp baseball as they try to lock up a championship. And maybe some rain tries to slide into downtown. But I'm really looking at what's happening towards Clay and Putnam County. Little rumble of thunder as maybe you're trying to settle in for the evening. You might be hearing that towards Penny Farms, Keystone, Green Cove, Palatka. But that cell right there as it continues to move towards the east and towards the St. Johns River, it is falling apart. It's losing its juice as we get through the evening. The sun's gone down now, and we lose the heating of the day. But you might get a little rainfall there for Green Cove, Penny Farms, and down towards the Shands Bridge. Current temperatures, low 80s, and we're waking up in the morning in the lower 70s. As we look at our long-range forecast, we do have a front coming through Friday, and that's going to bring us a chance of showers in the evening during that evening commute time and close to high school football. And then there are your systems right there with little interaction from the front coming through as well. Current wave heights, I'm going to watch these climb as we get closer to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Right now, 2 to 3 feet, and pretty good. Forecast rainfall as we go through Friday and Saturday. About an inch possible. I might be overdoing it a bit, but some spots certainly could see an inch. You see the blue kind of shading there. And then that's through Saturday, and we bump up the totals a bit, about an inch and a half. That could fall sort of in that purple bullseye. But I go through Sunday, Monday, and you don't see much more rain. Maybe a little bit at the beach. And remember that Sunday, Monday is when a potential system will be moving offshore, blowing in those northeast breezes. So not much rain forecast with that. That is something we have to watch and monitor. As you wake up in the morning, low 70s, upper 60s, say in a place like Lake City. So a little more mild and a little muggy again for a Friday. Check out this sunset. I'm just enjoying this timeline because we had the beautiful layers of clouds and we had sunset occurring about 7:19 this evening. Absolutely beautiful over downtown as you see the jumbo shrimp lit up there in the bottom of your screen. So for Friday 91, we're going to have some storms around the I-95 corridor after 3. So we'll watch for those showers and storms, some potentially severe. So we'll have to have the strong to severe risk up a bit. There's 3 to 4:30. We see some of those storms moving through coastal Georgia, through the south side of Jacksonville. And, football getting kicked off around 7:30. We got to watch carefully for those showers lingering there. So I'd take your poncho with you to football and those southeast Georgia games. Camden County, for instance, one of our big games, could have some rain off and on throughout game time. Just hoping the lightning holds off. So we'll have that in our minds as well. All right, rain Friday. There you go, kind of your bullseye over 95. 60% of us will see those storms. And there's your sideline 2025 Friday night games. Many, many more games around the area, but some of these we're looking at. Notice we have the lightning icon for a few. Hopefully by the time the sun goes down, though, sunset right there at 7:17. 7:17 sunrise tomorrow, 7:17 sunset tomorrow. Right there, even, little symmetry. And as the sun goes down, but for some of these games, we hopefully will have lost some of that. We need the rain, though. Certainly need it. We're getting into that moderate drought area towards Lake City, creeping over towards Jacksonville, and in the 7-day forecast, hopefully getting a little bit of that rain Friday, Saturday to alleviate those issues. And, of course, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we'll watch, and we may have to make some adjustments considering some of the changes happening in the tropics. I'm Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner. I hope you'll join us at 11 o'clock tonight. If you miss it, hope you have a great